Three, two, live. Hi. Hey, everyone. Welcome.
Hey,
Welcome.
everybody.
Welcome to our weekly book club that we have one more left after this one. And welcome Andrea Frase to our book club. She's our guest host this week, and we're very happy to have you on board.
I'm happy to be here.
And this is week 5 of The Art of Peace and Happiness. This book, man. I'm going to buy several copies of this, give them away. This is such a great variety read that gets you to contemplate so much rich content, so much richness about the investigation and the presence that when you're reading Rupert's words, and I'm sure that everyone has a similar or maybe their own experience for sure, but I'll sit there reading, and what he's talking about opens up. It just like opens up into oh my God, I see, I see this exactly what he's talking about. It's such an illumination experience with the way he presents these ideas. They open the mind up into this it's almost like it's gradual. And it's interesting that when I put the book down and then pick it back up again, all of a sudden something I didn't totally see before, all of a sudden it's showing up, and I'm going, oh wow, I didn't see this the last time I read that page, or I didn't see that yesterday. It's just amazing. I just love this volume 1. I am planning to do volume 2 in after Labor Day weekend in either September or October. I'm going to do volume 2 and start another book club. But this summer, I'm going to have fun this summer. I'm going to go to the ocean. Andrea and I are going to be on the Camino together with a group of 20 people doing 150 miles, walking every day, contemplating, being present, totally soaking in whatever is there to be soaked in. I am stoked. I can't wait to be doing it. And I've met people around the country on some of my Facebook lives where they want to join my Facebook because I'm going to go Facebook Live with an audience, and I'm just going to talk about it. Not a ton. I'm not going to like make it my thing for going to the Camino, but like I have this GoPro camera that's going to be with me, and I'm going to sort of chronicle my daily journey and then put it up as a video, I think. Anyway,
It's going to be awesome, Bill.
I'm so looking forward to getting to know you better, Andrea, and also all of the other beings that we're going to be traveling with. Not to mention these amazing Portuguese and Spanish people that we're going to meet on the path, and all these different
from all over the world.
Yeah, it's just great. You know, Moody is in Portugal. He's about 3 hours. No, he's about 4 hours south of where we're going to fly into Porto, Portugal.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just going to say this and then open it for you, and then we'll get into the study. But I'm getting very excited about this Camino trip because one of the coolest things that I witnessed in Portugal when I was there living with Muji for a while was these gypsies that live on the streets, and you'll come around the corner and you'll see 50 people that are walking on the street with their animals and their carts and their families, and their whole household is moving along us, and they've been doing this for thousands of years. But they're like nomad gypsies that still live in that something that looks like it should be 1,000 years ago.
Whole different meaning for all of us.
Yeah. So welcome everyone to our book study, and thank you for joining with us. And for you all that have called in, thank you for being here. And this week we're going to talk about the world, and this is another juicy doozy chapter from Rupert because I mean it's got just.
I'm delighted in how you are experiencing this book, Bill. I'm like in such delight listening to you right now. I'm like,
It's just so good, you know. And
yeah,
I'm a miracles teacher. I read the course every day, but this gives me an experience. It actually has given me a new experience in the course that I didn't have before. It's
exactly.
the course in a way that I didn't see. It's almost like there was a door on the side of a mountain that you couldn't see to get inside and see what's inside there.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden the door is there. Now I've got a door to look inside the cave of Aladdin's treasure. You know what I'm saying? All the treasures that are there to be found in the experience of awakening, in the experience of enlightenment and awareness has actually the awareness, the way Rupert describes it and points to it and articulates it, has made it it's almost like every time I read a new chapter, a new something that he has to share, it's like, oh, I didn't see that before, and now all of a sudden you see a little deeper, a little more, a little more.
Because something has been removed and opened to allow that to be seen now.
Yes.
You know, it's like, and then it's happened so seamlessly.
Yes.
How it all kind of dissolves. I just think it's kind of like kind of going through the body, just kind of sifting through like sands in an hourglass, and all of a sudden the mind is empty and everything that was there is done. But it's just this very slow process, or I don't know, slow is really a judgment. I don't want to say it's slow, because in certain cases it's like ahas, and other moments it's like, what? And other moments it's like, of course, you're right there. And I found that this book in particular left you no wiggle room almost to understand it any other way than exactly the way Rupert means you to receive it.
Yeah.
I don't know if you experienced it that way. I said, "Ooh, there's no wiggle room here." It's like, boom, right on the mark.
Yes.
And for the direct path, it's softly direct.
Yes.
It's like at the same time, it kind of feels like it's hitting you over the head. But I had this image this morning before we came on, and part of it was this trip that I'm going on, and with you and other people. And I just had this image of the direct path as sort of like a direct flight to get on an airplane. And it's like, we go to the same place, to get on the plane. We all get on the same plane. We all have the same flight number. But when you enter the plane, there's like first class, and then there's economy, and within each class there's seats, and with each, and everybody sort of gets assigned a seat, but everybody arrives at exactly the same place at exactly the same time. There's no other destination. And for me, it's like, that's a direct path. It's like, we all think we're going to all these different ways, and we all have our experiences in our seats with everyone around us, and it's all feels so different to each one of us, yet we're on the same flight, going on the same path, arriving at the same place. And I was like, and we're going to deplane together. And then what we do with that, when we come out of that process of direct path awareness, is how do we then perceive this world? Yes. Because prior to all of this, we perceive the world with our five senses, with our sight, hearing, smell, touch, taste, and that's sort of our world. And when a moment comes where we're able to feel this sense of a presence of something else that seems to be aware of those five senses, it's like the shift begins. Mm-hmm. And for me, curiosity gets piqued, and so I start following my curiosity, and it's never let me down. Yep. It's never let me down, because that's that part that is the knowing that's sort of leading the one who thinks she doesn't know into the place of the knowing, of which is home.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
And, when you were describing the plane, I like the idea that we all end up at the same destination, at exactly the same time, to recognize and realize and also know that we never left where we arrived. We never left, and we can walk. Just think of this: when you leave a movie and you say, "Oh wow, that was a great movie." Well, it's kind of like wow, that was a great movie. What a interesting movie we walked for 100 years, or for 1,000, or for a million years. What wasn't that interesting? I don't know that you would say that, because it's just like it never happened. But
Mm-hmm.
I do like the idea of we're all on the same plane, but we have different seat assignments. We have different experiences. We're all on the same destination, and because there's no time really, it's everyone is thinks or seems like they're having their own individual journey, when
Yes.
there's only one of us.
Right. Experiencing it all
Yes, great.
as one awareness, which
Yes,
is
it's great.
so beautiful. And the it's the same thing about, and even preparing for the trip. Everything about how I've been preparing for the trip, my yard, my home, my business, everything is as if I'm leaving it and not coming back. And I know, and I prepared my house the same way when it was up for sale a few years ago. And it was like very detailed. It was, cleaning places, getting rid of things, very detail oriented, and having it feel really, pristine. Not that I don't feel that in my home anyway, but like past what I typically keep it at.
Mhm.
And all I can, and I've been watching, because it just feels like guidance to do it. And so I've been really curious about that and saying, well, what is that? Am I not coming back? And that's the only thing the mind can do. The mind's asking the questions. Are you not coming back? What are you preparing for? And last night, as I was saying goodnight to a client, I realized that, because I let her know that I was going to be away for that piece of time, and I said, feels like I'm not coming back. I says, but what I understand is the way I understand myself in this moment. That's who's not coming back.
Yes,
And
good
when
one.
I arrive home, I prepared a space for myself
Good
that
one.
is going to be so ready for me.
Mhm.
There'll be nothing to do except to experience my awareness in my world in a completely new way. I mean, it's been changing anyway since I've lived here, because it's sort of like my cave that I came to, and to do all this work. But the world perceived through awareness is a completely different experience than a world perceived through our five senses.
Yeah.
Because one is one is believing in the body, mind, and world as separate entities, or substance and made of different substances. And awareness sees the seamlessness and the oneness of it all.
Mhm.
And I mean, this is the most, as I say, the most intimate relationship I have ever had is with myself.
Mm.
And I always had said so many times in my life that I don't want to leave this earth until I know unconditional love. And of course, the mind goes, well, I wonder who he's going to be. Who's going to give you that? And I was like, it turns out to be me. I'm the one who has learned to love myself unconditionally. And even in those moments where I feel challenged by my mind, because it can get in there with some old habits and, be in judgment of me and like, what are you doing? Why are you doing that? And it's like, and then this beautiful, loving presence comes in and goes, oh, because that's how it is right now. And
Yeah.
I understand that you don't understand that, but you will. You just stick with me and you'll see how this is all going to come together, and you'll be really surprised. And I
Yeah.
thought I live my life like that. Like every day is a surprise.
Mhm.
What's today going to be?
Mhm.
Because I don't believe that I'm personally, from my mind's point of view, directing it. I'm really allowing myself to open and allow that awareness to show me the truth.
Yes. Yes.
And if I'm listening and seeing rather than looking, listening rather than hearing, and probably being more quiet with my speech, and or when I do say something, to want to communicate well. Sometimes I feel like when I've shared on the show, I haven't shared as completely or as succinctly as I understand it in myself. And that's because sometimes it kind of filters through the mind. It's like, and it wonders, did they get that? And it's like, it gets in the way of the flow of me sharing my knowing and my experience and my awareness. Yeah. So I've been looking at that. Like sometimes I go back and I'll look at the shows, when you let us look. I look at a lot of things. I look at, the understanding. I look at the interactions. I look at everything. And I'm seeing that there's places where, mind steps in and when the awareness is present. Mm-hmm. And there's an ease and a peace and a comfort to that. And that's how I know who's in charge. Like today, I feel really comfortable. I feel at ease. I feel at peace, but I also feel this great joy. Mm-hmm. And so the substance of my world is more and more and more always awareness.
Yeah.
Instead of things.
Yeah. And I feel that this is the big difference for me with studying a great teaching, a great, like reading Osho or reading Yogananda, reading the Course, or reading, one of the great masters, just read versus actually noticing that there's an experience that's taking place that is happening. It's being noticed from a brand new place. It's not being noticed. It's being noticed from a place that you can't really put words on. It's like, you know what I'm saying? You can't put words on the awareness experience because it just is. And I love where this chapter, Rupert speaks of this. He speaks of it happening as a shift. And then I think it's 2 or 3 sections or 4 sections in. So we won't need to go to it immediately, but it's interesting that the experience of awareness that I hear you describing, the experience of awareness that I hear Arthur describe, or that I hear Annika or Kimberly or Jenny or any of the beings that have been guests on this program, and that people that it's like everyone has that same quality of knowing the being, or knowing the self. You can feel it. And I don't mean that it just has a flavor. It has a flavor to it, or a quality,
an authenticity to it.
Yeah.
Also in an intimacy that, when I, as I said, when I'm looking at what, when we can watch the replays and stuff, I see that. Like what you're talking about is like the transparency of it, and the illumination of talking about it. It was like you see this light come on in each of us when we're talking about an experience, and then there's such a, it just feels good to witness, and to be aware and to share that.
Yeah, it's like the ones that come in the room that are, you don't even have to be on the video or a guest host. The ones when they type in, like Catherine just posted, abiding in it. Yeah, see, there's a connected understanding that's taking place. That's it's illuminating. It's an illumination, just like you said. It's an illuminating, connected understanding of the self, of the being that has opened up into an expanded awareness and an expanded infiniteness, instead of this old idea of what we thought we were. And I totally, when we get further into the like on the first page, I underlined on page 1, I don't know the number on it. It looks like it's 11 in the book. Our
Yeah,
world
111.
made out of perceiving, and there's the third paragraph down, I underlined, aware presence is the light that illumines all experience.
Yeah.
That uh, when
Good.
you when you when you're like, we're going to be walking. I can't wait to be walking. I'm going to be so walking,
You're
aware.
already walking, Bill. You're already there. It's
Yeah,
done.
but right now, I'm
I
just
know.
right now I'm just putting my gear on.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about the little things I'm going to take with me, and I am so looking forward to, just like as I sit in my chair and I read this book, and I'll read a sentence or two or a paragraph, and I'll look up at the trees, and awareness that I am will encompass, and everything that the body's eyes is seeing is not separate from this awareness experience that's being articulated by our brother Rupert.
Yeah, I've noticed since I've been, the training is for me, I've been doing everything off road in the woods. So as I'm my world about taking the hike or putting on the equipment or walking in the woods, my experience is completely changed about being in the woods. And at one point the other day, I was out hiking and I felt like I couldn't really explain it other than to say I felt like I was walking inside myself. And I didn't feel like I was in the woods. I didn't feel separate from that. I didn't feel, it just all felt like one experience, not this Andrea, the walking, the this, the that, and the woods and the tree and the water and the waterfalls and all these things that I was seeing and experiencing. I didn't see them as separate things. And the other day when I was driving somewhere, because Rupert also talks about it in this chapter about, being very dreamlike, when you're really moving into the awareness and mind begins to dissolve on its own naturally. When it understands, when it comes to understanding, it just begins to let go. And I was driving the car the other day and it was after I came back from a hike. And I could feel, my body like in this L shape, sitting in the seat. I could feel my body in that shape. I could feel the seat under me. I knew I was in a car and I was moving down the road, but I didn't feel like I was driving. I felt like something else was driving and I was having this wonderful experience. I almost felt like I let go of the wheel. Thank God I didn't. Because I haven't progressed that much yet. But in that point of just being in this, and I started laughing because I was like, oh my God, this is so fabulous. And it felt as if I just was in this dream and I was experiencing somebody dreaming me driving. And the road was going by and the trees were passing me and I was enjoying the sun and they had music. And I was like, it was a full-blown experience of awareness.
Well, Rupert does speak to that in I think it's the last section in this chapter.
Yeah.
It talks about the state of awareness becomes like a dream state.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's what's happening in the woods. That's what's happening when I'm driving. I thought at one point I said, I better pull off the road. And then as soon as I said that, the mind showed up. And so then I was driving the car again, seemingly as Andrea. Yeah. But the most wonderful thing about this particular book that I'm having the experience of is that the words are like not on the page. The words, I feel like the words are my experience.
Yeah.
And so when I'm reading it, it's just like, you said it's so juicy and delightful, and you get very descriptive about it, and because it's palpable. And it's like we want to share it, so we have to, the mind wants to describe it in some way, but in the describing it, it still doesn't touch it.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Annika says, once it is recognized and it shifts, we no longer speak about it, but from it, as it. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you, Annika. And Hillary says, yes, friends in truth. And awareness doesn't go anywhere. Right. Yeah. Impossible.
Where could it go? It's everything.
Yeah. It's such a, what's so funny? Before I met Rupert, I was following Muji, and I've been following, as you all know, the course for a long time. Muji used to say, if you only, I almost, if I almost feel like it's just too easy. I'm trying to tell you what I'm pointing to is so easy that I almost feel bad that that it's this much, it's this easy. And he was only saying that in terms of that what I'm pointing to, you already are. What I'm pointing to, you don't need to find it because it's here. And that's what awareness is. Awareness is so once you see it, it's just like Annika said, it's just like Hillary said, awareness doesn't go anywhere. It just is. And when you connect with it, I love how Rupert describes in this he describes on page 130, he says, at a certain point, there is a shift. The world and awareness changes places.
Yes.
I absolutely ate that paragraph and that page up. It says, at a certain point, there is a shift. The reality we once attributed to the mind, body, and world is understood and experienced to reside with our self-awareness. And then down at the bottom of the page, I'm not going to read the other two paragraphs, but you can read it for yourselves. And he says, so the objectness of objects slowly fades and is replaced by the presentness of awareness. Just as darkness is slowly replaced by light in the early hours of the morning. We can never say how, when, why, or where this dissolution happens, precisely because the how, when, why, and where dissolve along with the darkness. Those questions no longer remain to be answered. I mean, it's just so delicious, this content and this pointing, because it's like you said a minute ago, Andrea, you read the words and they are you.
And what I loved about this explanation that you just read, when clients would come to me at the very beginning, I said, well, if you really, sincere about wanting to know the truth, I said, nothing, it can't be kept from you. And I said, and what's beautiful about the process, as I said, and what I love about how this work works is that, if you want to, that word, I don't even like that word works, but the process is that you will start doing things in your life and moving in a way that you never moved before, and you won't even realize that you've done it. Unless, because they'll say, you have difficulty, maybe you're a little shy or whatever. And through this process of, being consistent with coming in and connecting with yourself, I said, I love the process because it's so sweet. It's so gentle. It's so loving. It's done in such a way that you almost don't have the experience of it happening until it's happened. And then I said, I might say to you, oh, and they come in, you might come in and tell me some wonderful story about something you've done. And I go, and I'll sit there with a big smile on my face, because when I first met you, when you first came, that wasn't something that you would even imagine doing. And now you're just talking about it like it's an everyday event. And they'll look at me, they go, oh my God, you're right. I couldn't do that. And it's like, because it's when we're in our nature, it's seamless. There's no thinking. That's why I say, thinking means that we don't know. To know means to not think. If you know something, what's the point of thinking? There's nothing to think about. Right. So thinking to me is always engaging of a mind who's looking to know. But when you're in that state of knowing, there's no thinking involved. There's just the knowing and the flow of that, and in that intimacy where we're closer than close. And it's just, your life flows with that.
But the mind is still used, but it's in service to the knowing.
Exactly. And there's a comment about that in here too, when we talk about the psychological and the wait, I have a little note on that. Or I could just go to the book and look too, right?
And Hillary mentioned part 6 talks about this too. Part 6 in this chapter. Mm-hmm. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, so it's the psychological and the practical. Whereas for me, mine is just something practical. It knows how to read, it knows how to write, I always describe it as it knows the world the way the world was taught to me.
Yeah.
And for me to learn myself as being separate from the world. So it knows that. But it also, Rupert also says, the mind is also one of those things that comes along with awareness, where the body is the last to resist. And that's what his meditations in the tantric yoga is about, is to have that experience of realizing that, for instance, when your eyes are closed and you are asked to, focus on a thought, and then focus on the bottoms of your feet, or allow, now become aware of the music, or become aware of this, and keep adding things into the awareness. And then the question is asked, and where is that happening? Because if we think of ourselves as the body, we think, our thoughts and feelings, that's me. Those are my thoughts. Those are my feelings. Yeah. And it's happening inside of me, and everything else is the world and outside of me, or not me. So there's me and not me.
Yeah.
And when you do those practices of the yoga, where you just keep move and you just allow your awareness to move, you see that there's no boundary, there's no edges. It's just completely open, and it's instantaneous. All you do is just, say something, and it's there. There's no pause. It allows everything to exist within it,
right,
simultaneously. And so there's not like, in other words, awareness never says, no, you can't come in. Sorry, you have to go away. It allows all the judgment. It allows the anguish. It allows suffering. It allows the joy. It allows pain. It allows healing. Everything is there. Mm-hmm. And it's that love that allows it all, that mm-hmm. heals it all.
Well, I liked I was intrigued with his story, his observation of the two-dimensional creature he talked about.
Yeah, that was great.
I was interested in that. I was intrigued. I was trying to put my mind in a two-dimensional attitude, or to see the way he was describing it. And then he talks about the three-dimensional, and then he even talks about the four-dimensional. And I'm sort of going, wow, there is no telling. And then he talks about multi-dimensional. So there is really no telling the depth of or the open
the expansiveness.
The open expansiveness of what we are. I feel that we're just the very tiny tip of the iceberg of this experience of our true self.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It says, who says, Hillary said something. The finite mind wants to complicate things. Yep. And then Annika says, and it all depends on to whom we refer when we say I. Yes, that's what you were just saying.
Mm-hmm.
And then Rupert's meditation, the garden of experience, reveals there is no division between the world, mind, or body. None. It is seamless. That's the other thing I want to, I'm going to download all of my meditations, my Rupert meditations, before I go, and I'm going to be meditating with Rupert the whole Camino walk. Because we're going to be walking at least 6 hours a day.
Yeah.
Lots of time to meditate and walk and be.
And I have them loaded, and some of them are coming with me. And then in looking at it again, I thought that would be nice to bring that in. But I wonder if I'm not listening to Rupert and I was listening to the part of me that called me to this walk, what would that have to teach me along the walk as well? So I think it's nice to have the combination, but that's why I feel like on my walks around here, I started listening to the meditations and stuff with Rupert. And then I found myself wanting to listen to the birds. I found myself, and that's when my experience started expanding, getting bigger. And there wasn't me and Rupert and him talking or anything. It was just like it opened something in me that hadn't been opened before. I felt like, that listening to the meditation in the beginning was sort of like this little key that kind of like gave me a little crack, a look inside. And then when I let go of the meditations, something else came up for me, which was my awareness and what I was experiencing in that moment. And it was really beautiful. It was really beautiful. And that's the experience with the car, that it's like this oneness. So I'm looking forward to that as well.
I was doing a training, listening to Rupert's, one of his meditations, and I'm getting ready to walk across a bridge, and I've got my earbuds in my ears, and all of a sudden he starts talking about, now listen to the traffic. And there was a highway. I was getting ready. I heard the traffic on the highway, so I decided to stop, pull over, and put my hand on something so I could close my eyes and listen to his meditation. And I was experiencing exactly what he was talking about. Okay, now is that traffic, is it coming from a different place of this sensation that you have? And he just really walks you right through it. So, who knows when I'll use those meditations, but I think to have them, and you can, your iPhone, you can fill up so much data on one of these things. Why not just fill it up and have it if you want it? And
exactly.
I have these extra charging devices to take with me so I have plenty of battery for my devices, and I'll be charged up. And when I want to take it out, I'll just, I'll take the stuff out and just be with wherever I am. But
yeah,
I'm totally looking forward to really just experiencing this new place of being that I find myself.
Yeah, and so, and part of that is, that psychological and the practical part. It's a practical. Oh, have them with you, and then this other psychological part, which is, wants to kind of move and have everything be experienced as. How do I want to say here? Hold on. It's like when the mind is just used for something practical, and rather than something that wants to direct and tell me what to do or how to do it and judge what I'm doing and how I'm doing it. It's like before, a lot of times, like for instance, I'm saying, well, first the mind is saying, well, you got to take those things and you got to be listening to that on the trail and whatever. And I was like, going, okay, so I'm listening to the mind and I do it. And then it's like, what if I didn't? Awareness says, what if you just let that go? And so I did. And it's the same way with how I think about myself, whereas before I used to be really hard and judgmental of myself. And I still notice that shows up occasionally. And it's painful when it does. But it's like if I let something go or drop something or I do something differently, now rather than be mad at myself or judge myself for it, it's just something that I notice it and that's it. There's no irritation. There's no agitation around it. It's like if I drop something, I bend down and I pick it up. I put it where it's going to go. Whereas before I go, what are you doing? You're clumsy. You're this, you're that. And so that's the other part of that seamlessness of it when you stop hurting yourself with your thoughts, with your words, in your actions, and you just start seeing it as this one beautiful experience.
Yeah. So when you say, I think I heard you just say, awareness says, how does that work?
That's what I say it like that. Go ahead, ask me.
Well, I'm just wondering. So you didn't complete the sentence, but you said awareness says, So what is that?
Awareness, and see, this is the thing with me. It's like the knowing comes in, and then mind wants to have a little conversation with it because the mind is telling me to do something, and awareness is offering me another option. And so the part of me that's sort of in between the two is going, and then moves into and moves in as awareness, as opposed to ignoring that. What about something else? Yeah. It's like, oh, in other words, I didn't think of that. Yeah. Thank you. Something comes into my awareness. That's how I experience that.
Does that make? Oh, yeah, it makes sense. And I think it happens for each of us differently.
Yes.
For me, awareness may be a pause. It may be.
That's what the is.
Yeah.
That's my pause.
Awareness may be a pause and then allow, because that's where the mind is relaxed.
Yep.
Into the awareness of knowing, and then the knowing experience takes on. But the mind has to be relaxed into not having its into not leading, so to speak.
Right? Well, for me, when that awareness comes up, all my attention is to that, and that, for me, my mind has learned to relax when that's occurring. It's kind of like mind goes, oh, geez, now she's going to be listening to that awareness again. I better step back. She's going to go with that. And because there's a letting go process that has to happen with the mind. Otherwise, you never hear the guidance, or the awareness doesn't feel present to me. Mind's voice is the only thing I hear, and its direction and its criticism. When this other aspect of myself, my aware self, began to permeate my experience more and more and more, the mind's ability to override it lessened and lessened and lessened, because I was paying attention to it, and because I would make a different choice. That when, for instance, like I said, when it says, well, what about this? And I go, all of a sudden I've moved away from the mind, and I'm in this other place of receiving something to consider. But
or actually allowing something to take place, because there's no. It's interesting how we get the download. The download comes into a whole idea. It comes into a whole, like it can be a whole summarized. Oh, I know what to do now. Like it went from the download is like the whole book. It's like you get the whole book at one time.
Yes. And me explaining it to you is nothing like the experience I'm having. The experience is instantaneous, but when you ask me the question, it's like, okay, so now I have to talk about mind, and I have to talk about the awareness, and how that changes places.
Yeah.
How the mind changes a place, and the awareness takes the place of the thinking.
Yes.
Okay.
And that's what he talks about. He talks about the shift where it shifts places. Awareness shifts places with the world.
Right.
Experience.
That's what's happening. So me trying to say what it was that was so natural and just happened without a single thought. It's like, what did you just say, lady? But there it is. The shift.
You have a favorite section in this chapter? What was your favorite section?
I loved it all, but I know that I love the idea also too of when Rupert introduced the whole idea of art, and saying that it really just collapses that space between thinking and object and objectivity, and we're one with this experience of beauty, whether it be a bowl that he made, or a painting that Annika painted, or I paint, or a song we hear. There's this collapse that happens, and there's no space. It's a very intimate place, and it's one of beauty. And it's like, he said, feelings become love, thinking becomes understanding, and the perception becomes beauty.
Yes.
And so to understand love and experience beauty as this one experience that happens, And so that the world in its way provides awareness, as the world provides these ways for us to make connections and have an experience of oneness. And whether we're looking at a beautiful flower, or like you love to be near the ocean and you look out the ocean and there's this vastness. And it's like growing up as a child, and even now, whenever I would pass an open field, because I live out in the country and there's a lot of horses here, so they have to have open fields to grow hay and whatever. But for as long as I can remember, I love looking out into open space. And it hit me the other day when I was out walking. I said, because it reminds you of who you are. Open, empty space. And I just started crying.
Nice.
So it was like showing me, it's always showing us, so that mirror that he talks about in these chapters too. Mm-hmm. So for me for me, painting really helped me, drumming, singing. And these are all things that I didn't have any lessons on. When people say, how did you learn how to drum? I said, who taught you? I go, nobody. I said, how did you learn to sing like that? I go, I don't know. I just started singing. And then I know I really wanted to paint. I kept hearing watercolors for years. And then my mind says, well, you can't do that. You have to have a lesson. You don't know how to paint. And then one day I said, I'm going to go up and get some brushes, some paints, and I'm going to just stop painting. And I started painting and I didn't stop for a long, long time. It's not that I've stopped now. It's just that I feel like I'm in a pause. But it was a way for me to connect with an aspect of me that didn't have any words. Mm. And I wouldn't think about what I wanted to paint. I would just go up, I'd lay out the paints and I'd say, okay, what do you want for brush? And I would just wait and my hand would go out and pick up a brush. And I said, well, what color do you like? Next thing I know, it's like looking over the colors and the paintbrushes in there that's going like this. And the next thing you know, it's like, it's all over it's painting away. And then all the energy goes and I just go, oh, I guess I'm done. And I would walk away and I'd leave it on the easel in the corner. And I'd come back later off doing something else. And I would come around the corner and look at it and go, oh my God, look at that. And it was like, Andrea's looking at it, but because Andrea in her mind did not paint that. And I didn't know what was on that thing, and as I've looked at them, people say, well, what is it? What are you going to name it? What are you going to call it? And I go, I'm not going to name it anything. I'm not calling anything. I'm just going to say, it's a meditation and I'm going to number them, because as you look into my paintings, the more you look, the more you see. It's faces and spirits and, spirits, that's a word that, the word, the holistic word uses. But anyway, images, you see more and more things the more you look. So it's nice to just sit. It's like when you said you read the book and then you go back and you go, oh, I didn't see that before. Gee, now that's all I can see on the page. It's the same thing with my painting. So I started to see more and more aspects of myself as I would go back, and even now go back and look at a painting. It's like, oh, now I see it differently than I experienced it the first time. So if it's coming from that place of pure awareness and it's made out of it, it appears in it and it's known by it. And as I appear in my own awareness and I know myself by that awareness and I understand that everything is made of that, now my looking at my paintings has to change with that. It's just like as you change, Bill, and you're looking at the words on the page and the books, there's something else to know now. There's something else to understand. It's just this beautiful, seamless thing that's going on all the time.
You told me about your paintings before the show started, and I asked you if you could bring a couple of. Can you show us some of an example of what you're talking about?
Yeah. Well, I think I'm going to show you one that reminded me of a story that you were telling about opening up into the mountain, whatever. But for me,
like
remember what's that?
Has a door.
That's right. The one that has a door is sort of like that. So I don't know. So this is his one, and I'll bring it back a little bit. So there's these doors, and in front of do you want it closer?
No, that's good right there.
Okay.
And
then in front of the doors is I can't say it, but I'll spell it SHIT. Piled up, there's my mind sitting there full of all these ideas and systems and beliefs. And there's this door. And then out of the top of the painting is like this spiral almost like a uterus shape comes to the doors. And that's what's hanging between the doors is like a little locket. And in the middle of the locket is a heart. It's sort of the key that unlocks the doors. And right behind the doors is all the light. So if you can get through your SHIT and find the key to your heart, it opens the doors to all the light in you, is another way to look at the painting. That's how I would see it now from the awareness that I'm in.
Yeah. When you were painting this,
none of that was going on.
Painted this. And when did you paint that?
I painted this in 2008.
Okay. 10 years ago.
Yes.
Where was your mind? There? Where in the pile of shit?
It must have been, but like I said, I wasn't painting those. It would just it would just paint it. And I didn't know what it was going to paint, and I didn't really care because I wanted to connect. I deliberately began to paint without any lessons to connect with something that kept saying it wanted to paint. So I trusted that whatever wanted to paint had something to give me through the painting.
Nice.
And I believe it did. So the other one, last week you were talking about, how we go into illumination.
Yes.
Into light. And so for me, this one, I can see, the body, but also prominently in that is the heart. Mm. And then, as I said, the pain and the suffering is at the lower part, sort of draining out of it. The arms are wide open. Mm. And then, but there's no head. There's no mind there. It's just wide open and taller than the mountains, taller than the trees, and everything's turning to light.
Yeah. I see like two hands in the middle, like.
Yes. And some people, if you turn, and you can turn these, some people say that, they turn this way or another way. It feels like a yoga pose.
Yeah.
So I tell everybody to take the painting and turn it any way you want. And exactly, Bill, because when I said a meditation, what you see and what I see,
yeah,
is completely your own.
When I see that, it makes me want to go intimate, into the being.
Yeah, the minute I put it up, your hand went on your heart.
Yeah, I just
did you know that?
I know it happened automatically. It's like I connected with the music of that creation.
Yes. Yeah. Interesting. Music. It was like when I started, the first time I ever started singing with a client down, and I was like trying to stop it because I didn't know where it was coming from, and it wasn't in English. I didn't know what it was, and I thought it was going to scare the client because everybody always told me I had a terrible voice, and so I'm like trying to stop this sound, and it finally got it quiet, and then it came back again, and I was just like, let me just get through this session. And I went over and sat down and checked in with the client. Of course, ego never wants to admit that it doesn't know what's going on. So I didn't even bring it up. But she said to me when she was sitting across from me, she goes, Andrea, I didn't know you spoke Navajo. And I'm looking at her and I went, well, why would you say that? I'm like, what? She says, because you called me by my Navajo name and you spoke to me in Navajo. And I said, did I? And I'm like, wow. Because Navajo is not a written language. You would only know it auditorily. And she also, just like you did, she didn't describe it as singing. She said, you spoke to me. My experience is I was singing something that I didn't understand to her, and it frightened me, made me nervous. And she got exactly what she needed. I called her by her name. I gave her a message in Navajo, and off she went. And it's like, and my mind is going, what the hell? Mm-hmm. And you just said, it's saying to you.
Yes. Yeah.
That's
the way. This
is what's so great about experience.
That's the way divine intelligence comes in to an open mind. It speaks to you in a total understanding. You don't need words. You don't need paragraphs. You don't need a description. All of a sudden, it's just, and then the closest you can get is, that feels like.
You've been trying to describe it, yeah, because it's knowing. Knowing doesn't need anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So tell me, we have 5 minutes left, and what is your takeaway on this chapter, if you have one?
I'm taking it all the way into myself. And my takeaway is just really that the world and body and mind are really one awareness and one seamless experience.
Yeah.
It's not, and the mind still wants to make it a world. It still wants to identify as a body. It still wants to think it's a mind and do all of that. And I know that those things I will continue to experience and do continue to experience.
Yeah.
But my understanding of this has changed that experience. And how do I know that? By what I shared with you about walking in the woods and driving a car, about painting a painting. I know that the I that knows, the I awareness knows that the shift has taken place and that awareness and the idea of who I was before have trading places.
Yeah.
And in that process of trading places, I'm experiencing myself, the world, and everything that's going on it feels like a brand new way, but at the same time, it feels very natural, peaceful, unbelievably joyful, and exciting, that I don't have to live under those old belief systems. I don't have to live with a punishing mind, that I have the awareness to shift all of that, because I am that awareness that makes the shift. Mm-hmm. It's not shifted in the mind, it's shifted with awareness.
Yeah, and I totally get that. I actually feel in my experience that I've watched an opening in my own experience just since going through the last book, The Nature of Consciousness, and this one this has a different quality to it. That's why I said that this is a very unique reading. This is a very unique study, and that's why I'm going to buy copies of this and give them to people, because I don't know who and I don't know when, and I'm like you with your paint color. I don't know what I'm going to buy to take on the trip. I don't know what when I get ready to download meditations or songs, I'll know when I do it what's going with me. And I'll only know because of what gets loaded. Right? Because at a point you recognize at some point that if you're really relaxing into this place of trust, this place
that's the word, yeah.
Trust and awareness will lead the way, and you don't get stuck on how you get there or what the means are or where you're going next. Except I know that I bought a plane ticket to Porto, and I think
me too. We're going on the same plane to the same destination. Yes. It's a direct flight to the direct path of an opening that's going to be so incredible. That already is.
So our next chapter, our last chapter in this book, is called Experience. And I'm going to invite all of our guest hosts to show up, whoever can be on the last show next week. Send me an email, let me know that you are available, and I'll send you a link. And maybe we'll run next week's show for an hour and 15 minutes, a little bit longer, because I would really love to hear from each one what speaks to you from the chapter 6 or the week 6, the title called Experience. I would really like to hear from each one of our guest hosts. Whoever is available, I would love to hear from you. And I just love sharing with you all this way. This has been my joy to be inspired to pick this up and turn it into a book study. I'm looking forward to volume 2 of The Art and Peace of, the volume 2 has a different name. What's the name of volume 2 on this one, Jenny? Do you know the name on the title for Presence volume 2? And thank you all for being with us today for this joyful hour. Oh, you know what? I didn't see that we had all this chat here. I'm sorry, you guys. my chat was stuck on a comment about 15 minutes ago. Sorry about that. Well, I'm going to go back and read all the chat and let our guests go. Thank you all for joining with us today. Thank you, Andrea, for being our guest host this week. And if you're available next week, I'd sure love to have anybody.
I'm totally available to be there next week. So there's one.
All right. So I'd love to have each one of you. We have room for 6, so we can all be.
That would be awesome. That's exactly what I didn't know what you were going to do. Well, I guess I did, because I even shared, I think, with Annika one time. I said, I don't know, what are we going to do for 6? I said, wouldn't it be nice if we were all on together? I said, maybe he'll do that. And now you are.
Yeah, just now. So that's it's hot off the press. All right.
Beautiful.
I love you all, and I'll see you next week.
We love you too. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.